The low rumble of diesel engines reached me before I saw them. I was standing at the edge of my property, mug of coffee warming my hand, when 3 enormous charter buses crept down the gravel road, their suspensions squeaking with every bump. Dust billowed in their wake, hanging in the morning air like a storm cloud. My first thought was that someone had taken a wrong turn. Nothing out here but my land and a couple of neighboring parcels. Quiet, open space, deliberately free of HOA nonsense. Then I spotted her. At the front of the first bus, standing proudly in the passenger stairwell like she was about to cut a ribbon at a grand opening, was Karen. She was unmistakable, bleached hair teeth stiff, sunglasses the size of saucers, and that familiar clipboard clutched against her chest like a royal decree. She caught sight of me instantly and raised her hand in a wave that wasn't so much friendly as triumphant. My stomach sank. Whatever this was, it wasn't a mistake. The buses ground to a halt just past my gate. The squeal of brakes echoed across the pasture. Curious faces pressed against the tinted windows. Families, kids, couples balancing picnic baskets on their laps. I could hear the murmur of voices and the thump of coolers being shifted around. I set my mug on the fence post and crossed my arms. Karen stepped off the bus with the theatrical air of someone stepping onto a stage. Her heels clicked against the gravel. Her perfume cut through the smell of diesel, and her smile was the kind politicians practice in the mirror. "Good morning," she announced, voice pitched to carry not just to me but to the audience still seated in the buses. "We've arrived at the overflow site for the HO Fall Festival." I blinked. "Overflow site, yes," she said briskly, striding toward my gate like she owned the place. We had such a fantastic turnout this year that our community park simply couldn't accommodate everyone. So, naturally, we needed additional space. And since you've got all this land just sitting here, she gestured broadly at my pastures, fits perfect. I let her words hang in the air for a beat. Birds chattered in the mesquite trees. A cow lowed in the distance. Finally, I said flatly, "You mean my land?" "Private property." Karen's smile didn't falter, but her eyes narrowed slightly behind the sunglasses. "Yes, well, don't be petty. It's for the Chimleys are counting on this." Behind her, I saw kids bouncing in their seats, parents hoisting tote bags stuffed with snacks, folding chairs, even little pop-up tents. She had clearly sold them on the idea. "They thought this was all ever asked me," I said. Karen gave a dismissive wave of her manicured hand. "Oh, please. Everyone knows you're not part of the HOA. But it's just common sense you contribute when the community needs it. You've got more land than you use." Sharing is neighborly. The arrogance was staggering, even for her. I'd lived across from the HOA subdivision for 5 years, watching from a safe distance as Karen terrorized her neighbors with violation notices about unapproved mailbox kellers and grass that dared grow half an inch too tall. She thrived on control. I had no idea she'd escalate to commandeering buses full of people and trying to annex private property. "You rented buses," I said slowly. "You rented buses, filled them with people, drove them out here, and assumed I'd let you host your festival on my land." Her smile flickered but returned quickly. "Of course, it's the right thing to do. And besides," she leaned in, lowering her voice just enough to sound conspiratorial, "it would lawfully bad if word got around that you turned away families and children. You wouldn't want to be known as the unfriendly neighbor, would you?" I almost laughed. The audacity of it. She thought peer pressure and public shaming would work on me that worked on her HOA victims. I took a step toward the gate, my boots crunching on the gravel. "Karen," I said evenly, "this is private property. You and your 3 buses of strangers are not invited." Her smile cracked this time. A muscle twitched in her jaw. "Excuse me if you heard me. Turn the buses around. Go back to your park." Karen's voice rose, her words sharp. "You can't just say no. The event is scheduled. People have planned for this. We don't have room anywhere else. And your land is empty." This is exactly what community spirit is about. Community spirit. That was rich. Coming from the woman who once called animal control because my dog barked at her yuppie Pomeranian from across the road. I reached for the heavy steel gate and slowly swung it shut. The hinges groaned, metal grinding against metal. Karen's eyes went wide as I pulled a thick chain through the latch and secured it with a padlock. The click echoed like a gavel. "What do you think you're doing?" she screeched, rushing forward until she was nearly nose to nose with me through the bars of clear. I said, "No freeze. Trespassing." Behind her, I heard the shuffle of feet and the squeak of bus doors opening. A few eager guests started to climb down, picnic baskets in hand, only to freeze when they saw me lock the gate. Confusion spread to one another. Parents whispered to one another. Someone asked if this was the right place. Karen whirled around, flapping her clipboard like a flag of authority. "Everyone, please stay calm. There's just a minor misunderstanding. He'll let us at any second." Then, turning back to me with a tight smile. "No," I said simply. The word landed like a stone dropped in water, Ripples of murmurs passed through the buses. A kid pressed his face against the glass, frowning. A man in a baseball cap shook his head and muttered something I couldn't catch. Karen's face flushed red. She jabbed a finger toward me. You are being unbelievably selfish. This will reflect very poorly when I bring it up at the next community board meeting. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Karen, I'm not in your HOA. Your board has no authority here. You can complain all you want. This land is mine, and today it's closed. I picked up my coffee, now cooled, and tipped the mug toward her in mock salute. Then I climbed into my pickup, the door slamming shut with finality. As I started the engine, Karen's shrill voice rose behind me, echoing across the empty fields. You'll regret this. Do you hear me? I didn't look back. I shifted into gear, rolled past her 3 stranded buses, and drove down the long dirt road, leaving her and her would-be festival choking in the dust. By the time I rolled back down my driveway that evening, the sun was hanging low, bleeding orange and gold across the sky. The air was cool, quiet again, though the gravel shoulders told the story of what had happened after I left. Deep ruts scarred the road where the buses had idled for hours, their engines digging grooves into the dirt. A few crushed soda cans glittered in the ditch, and near the gate, someone had left 2 trash bags overflowing with paper plates and juice boxes. I parked my truck, climbed out, and walked the length of the fence. It felt strange, coming back to this still after the chaos of the morning. My gate, thankfully, was still chained tight, lock in place. They hadn't gotten in. As I leaned against the fence post, a memory from earlier replayed in my head. My phone buzzing in the cupola of my truck while I drove into town. The caller ID had read, County Sheriff's Office. Afternoon. The sheriff had said when I picked up. His voice carried that dry, calm patience only a man who dealt with decades of nonsense could perfect. Got a report of trespassers trying to access your land. I'd chuckled. You don't say. A couple buses full of folks claimed they were told they had permission for a festival. Sound familiar? Too familiar, I said. It was the HOA Queen across the road. Decided my pasture made a good overflow lot without asking me. The sheriff gave a low whistle. Figures. Do you want to press charges? We can come out. Write some citations. I thought about it. The idea of Karen being frog marched in front of her beloved neighbors had a certain appeal. But I wasn't looking for a legal war. Nah, I said finally. Just remind them it's private property and send them on their way. You sure? Positive. A locked gate should be enough of a lesson. The sheriff chuckled. Fair enough. Guess you've got thicker skin than most. Now, standing in the quiet evening air, I could imagine how it must have gone down after that call. Karen pacing in front of the bus's voice hoarse from barking orders, while families grew restless. Parents juggling cranky kids. Coolers dripping melted ice onto the gravel. Guests realized sitting in a roadside standoff. Some probably argued with her. I could hear it in my head. Why didn't you ask the guy first? Or, we paid for this bus. Karen. Others likely threatened to leave on foot. And all the while, the sheriff's cruiser parked nearby, a silent reminder that they were, in fact, trespassers with no leg to stand on. Eventually, the buses must have lumbered off, embarrassed, fumes trailing behind them. The festival overflow had become a caravan of disappointment. Later that night, I got the rest of the story through the grapevine. Out here, word travels fast, even faster when Karen's involved. My buddy Mark, who actually lives in the HOA and somehow manages to stay on her good side, called me with the update. You should have seen it, he said, laughing so hard I had to wait for him to catch his breath. Karen was red as a tomato. The sheriff gave her a polite but firm lecture about trespassing. Half the family swore up and down they'd never come to another event she organized. Said their kids were hungry, hot, and bored, all because she wanted to play queen of the festival. I leaned back in my porch chair, listening, picturing it all in my mind. The mighty clipboard, her weapon of choice, losing its power in real time. Mark continued. At the board meeting tonight, it got even better. Parents showed up furious. They tore into her about wasting money on buses nobody asked for. One guy demanded she reimburse him for his family's tickets. Another said she made the whole neighborhood look like a circus. The board stripped her of her planning role, effective immediately. I couldn't help grinning. She lose the clipboard. Vo yeah, Mark said, snatched right out of her hand. I swear she almost cried. The satisfaction I felt was sharp and sweet. For years I watched her make her neighbors' lives miserable with petty rules and power trips. But this time, she'd gone too far. She hadn't just bullied one person about mailbox paint or grass height. She'd embarrassed an entire crowd. And crowds don't forgive as easily as individuals. The best part, I hadn't lifted a finger beyond locking a gate. The land had done the work for me. After Mark hung up, I sat for a long while on the porch, sipping a fresh cup of coffee that carrot when it's flavored with someone else's downfall. Fireflies blinked across the field. Crickets chirped. The world was calm again, just the way I liked it. I imagined Karen sitting in her perfectly manicured house across the road, curtains drawn tight, stewing. Maybe plotting her next move, maybe drafting some passive-aggressive community newsletter about selfish neighbors. She could rant all she wanted. She couldn't touch me here. That was the beauty of it. My land wasn't part of their little kingdom. No dues, no rules, no Karen. Just open space, my cows, my fences, my peace. The more I thought about it, the more it felt like a parable. She had tried to seize control, to spread her HOA tentacles across property that wasn't hers. And the harder she pushed, the more spectacularly she failed. It was like watching a wasp fly headfirst into a window over and over until it finally gives up. As the night deepened, I built a small fire in the pit out back. The wood crackled, sparks rising into the dark. I let the warmth soak in content. Out here, I didn't need festivals or committees or buses full of strangers to feel part of something. My land was enough. My quiet was enough. Some folks think victory is about shouting the loudest or proving a point in public. I'd learned that sometimes, the sweetest victory is silence. A locked gate. A conusel, letting people hang themselves with their own arrogance while you sit back and enjoy the show. And that night, under a sky full of stars, I realized I'd just won the quietest, most satisfying battle of my life, all without stepping foot past my fence line.